And as far as I'm concerned, it was real.
Charlotte believes she has had encounters with the supernatural since childhood. This connection troubles her, but it seems strong enough to continue throughout her life. Supernatural beings of all types have been reported for centuries from around the world. Most of these entities from the other side seem to be disembodied humans. Charlotte's visitors didn't appear in human form, but our experts caution us to not make too much of that, because if there is a spirit world, deception may be as much a part of that universe as it is a part of our daily life. And so there is no guarantee that presences that appeared to Charlotte were in fact what they seemed.
We used to go for a Sunday drive all the time. My dad would pile us in the car and we would go for a Sunday drive. And one time we went and we were coming into a town and there was a bridge and a dry kind of riverbed. And then across on the other side of the bridge was an old barn on the left-hand side, an old faded red barn with faded white letters. Just before we're crossing the bridge, I was in the back seat with my sister, I had a vision of this two people in a horse carriage. There was a woman, a young woman, late teens, early 20s, and an older man. And, she was in old-style clothes with a little sack purse, kind of on her wrist. And the bridge was a wooden bridge. It was the same scene, but newer. And it was a wooden bridge. And, the riverbed was, it was like, must have been spring, because it was muddy and the water was churning and it was flowing really quickly. And as this couple crossed the bridge in their horse-drawn carriage, the bridge collapsed. And, they perished, they died. And I kind of freaked out in the car, and I was, crying and telling my dad to stop the car, not to go over the bridge. And, of course he thought I was, didn't have a clue what was going on. And he drove across the bridge and stopped and turned around, was angry, and was like, what's going on back there? And, and then I felt a little foolish because we had crossed the bridge and everything was fine. But the vision was just so vivid that, I really had a sense of despair and fear. That vision has never really faded. Like, it's always been very clear. The details are, as clear as that time. And so I had gone and I did some research, and there was some old archives that I was managed to find, and in it was a picture of this place that I had seen, the bridge, the barn on the other side. And I did a search, and sure enough had found that there was one spring that was, I guess it had been a hard winter, and the spring runoff was, fiercer than normal. So the river was really swollen. So when this couple crossed, the bridge collapsed and they were swept away. It was a revelation to be able to confirm that it was a little satisfying and frightening at the same time.
Tamara Shires tells us she was just 9 years old when she had her vision on the bridge. Like Charlotte, her connection to the supernatural started in childhood. And like Charlotte, Tamara's early experience did not involve the appearance of a spirit or ghost. There's an important difference between these two incidents. Charlotte's dream took her into the future, while Tamara's vision took her into the past. In the physical world, all we have is the present. The past is lived through memory and oral or written history. The future is yet to be. But Charlotte and Tamara's stories imply that in a supernatural world, past and future can actually be experienced in the present. It is some years later now. Tamara and her high school friends decide to have a seance. Her connection to the supernatural will be tested, and their teenage enthusiasm is about to lead to a dramatic encounter with a force they think comes from beyond.
So we all went down in the basement, and we're going to do this seance. And, we had been goofing around with the tape recorder. So we decided to tape the seance. And, there was a lot of giggling going on, and, we ask a question and then somebody would snicker. So it really, like, the atmosphere wasn't serious at all. So, but we'd asked for a sign, you know, called the spirits, and then asked for a sign of their presence. And at that moment, the candle flame, like very distinctly, went down and up and down like 3 times. And at that point, I felt extremely uncomfortable. Like I was feeling sick to my stomach. I just wanted to go home. Like at that moment, I was just like, I want to go home. And, you know, kind of fearing ridicule from my friends that, you know, I was affected this way. You know, I jumped up, turned the light on, made some kind of joke, and, you know, the moment passed. And, you know, we kind of said, okay, well, let's listen to the tape. So we played back the recording, and, you know, we're laughing at ourselves. And then at the point where the candle flickered, all we heard was the 3 claps. So at that point, like, we all, you know, screamed, ran upstairs, and, you know, had lots to talk about for the next couple of weeks.
Life goes on for Tamara. She's now a devoted mother with a young child. But despite these changes, Tamara's ghostly encounters continue. Only now, to her dismay, her young son is involved.
We lived in an apartment building, and I had a really long hallway. And he was always really reluctant to go to his room. And at first I just took it up, you know, that he didn't want to go to bed. You know, what child does want to go to bed? So I ignored him half the time. But then he started saying the man. He didn't like the man. And I, you know, would ask him, well, what man? And he's like, the bad man. You know, I don't like the bad man. So, and it kind of, you know, like, it concerned me, because it was a repetitive thing. Like, it was every time he was going to the end of the hall where his bedroom was, you know, he would cry and talk about the bad man. And I went with a girlfriend of mine once, and we had gone to see a psychic. And, you know, that whole experience was not, you know, I wasn't impressed. It wasn't like I all of a sudden became a believer. I actually doubted her abilities. And then she turned and out of the blue said to me, and this is before, like, we hadn't discussed whether I had children, you know, what sex my child or children were. And then she turned to me out of the blue and said, you know, there's a presence in your home that's disturbing your son. You have to tell them to go, because it's extremely disturbing to him. That kind of, you know, gave me goosebumps. So she said to you know, smudge the house. So I went home, and that's exactly what I did. Smudging is something that the natives do. It's like a purification. The essence being that, you know, the smoke will carry away bad spirits and cleanse the place. After that, there was never another incident with my son. There was never, you know, it was all of a sudden like, you know, a light switched and there was no more fear.
Both Tamara and Charlotte began seeing ghosts when they were kids. These incidents have continued throughout their lives. Their experiences suggest we have some control over what happens during these moments. Charlotte decided she didn't want to keep dreaming about future events, and so she shut it off. When Tamara realized something was disturbing her son, she smudged her apartment. That seemed to drive away the presence in her home. It's thought-provoking to see how calmly these women were able to relate the stories of their frightening encounters. Perhaps one of the reasons for their matter-of-fact manner is that they both believed these experiences would be far more common for all of us if we'd only let them happen.
All I know is that there aren't just, you know, there aren't just 3 dimensions out there. There's something else, and, you know, I think if you allow yourself to be open to these things, and I think most people would experience them or could experience them, but they don't want, you know, they don't believe in that kind of stuff, or they don't want to, or they just think it's crazy, or, you know.
I've never been one to be like afraid. Like I always would say, you know, well, you know, if there's a UFO, well, come visit me. And if there's a, you know, a ghost sighting, well, you know, come hang out with me. So I think maybe it was, you know, just, and I think if you're, once you're more open to it, I think then it comes.